Hello friends, welcome to Kizuna India-Japan Study Forum. The Kizuna India-Japan Study Forum was launched in September 2022 by the MOSI, that is Mombusho Scholars Association of India. The forum aims to unravel, document, and disseminate the lesser known or under-researched aspects of India-Japan historical and cultural interactions through lectures, seminars, conferences, and publications. The forum, since its inception, has held one international conference on discovering India-Japan civilizational ties and Southeast Asia connectivities in February 2023 and 8 monthly lectures. The papers presented in the conference are now published in the form of a book titled Geographies of Exchange Between India and Japan. Today's talk by Mrs. Radhika Srinivasan on the concept of Mandala in India and Japan is the 9th under Kizuna monthly lecture series. Let me introduce the speaker. Mrs. Radhika Srinivasan is an art historian, a passionate researcher, and a journalist. She has published 4 books on Asian cultural traditions, which include The Lotus Unfolds, Study of Asian Art and Thought, and Cultures of the World, India, the Spiritual Kingdom. In 2005, she held an exhibition of mural art traditions from Tanjore to Toji at the Asian Art Museum, San Francisco. A dedicated social worker, she also runs a girls' home for the underprivileged children in Manchikudi, a village near Chennai, South India. Let me introduce the chair. Professor Archana Shastri is a very versatile practicing artist, a designer, and an educator with rich worldwide experiences. She has headed FD and FC Department of NIFT, Art Education Department of NCERT, Government College of Arts at Chandigarh, Kala Darshana at Indira Gandhi National Art Center of Arts, New Delhi. And she was also the former director of Mekong Ganga Asian Traditional Textile Museum, Cambodia. She has held several exhibitions and published several research papers. She did her master's in fine arts from MS University, Baroda. She was awarded fellowship in visual communication from NID, advanced printmaking from RCA London, and did fashion orientation from FIT New York. Now I request Professor Archana Shastri to conduct the session and give her introductory remarks. Thank you, Archana ji.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Narasimhan, and welcome to all our viewers and, of course, our sort of current speaker, Mrs. Radhika Srinivasan. I guess, I mean, I will leave it to ma'am to kind of give to give a presentation on the mandala, and we can sort of summarize it at the end of it. Those of you who are interested may kindly post your pictures, or maybe, have a direct interaction with Mr. Srinivasan. So thank you. So we can sort of start with you.
Good afternoon and namaste to all. Let me at the outset thank the organizers, Kizuna India-Japan Study Forum, Dr. Sushila Narasimhan, and our chairperson, Srimati Archana Shastri, for having given me the opportunity to speak on a subject that is closest to my heart. The concept of mandala. Let's unravel what this mandala is all about. Like the peel of an onion, we will one by one reveal its mysteries. Mandala in Sanskrit means the universe. A circle with a center, a continuum like a wheel with a hub that rotates, yet itself remains fixed, as it were. It is a diagrammatic matrix through and from which flow a succession of changes within a certain order. It has appeared as a symbol of continual change, creation, preservation, transformation, dissolution, etc. Inherent in the cosmic movement of space and time is the center. We need to fix the center first. Once we fix the center and expand the diagram, the structure, a column, or any artistic creation for that matter, in order to represent the multiplicity of forms in the objective universe. A, in order to represent multiplicity, and B, which is more important, at a personal level, bring a host of random thoughts scattered all over towards the center with a single thought. A mandala is also known as yantra, a means to achieve an end. This concept of mandala has pervaded every aspect of speculative thought, construction, art, ritual, and philosophy, not just in India, but throughout Asia, as we shall see. Thus, a mandala is a metaphor that has a plethora of inlaid meaning, extending its domain to mystery, magic, and the sacred arts. 4 basic principles can be discerned in a mandala: a center and a circle, a square, a triangle, or 2 inverted triangles, lotuses to form the cardinal points, etc. The first property, the center point, is fixed, while all the others may vary according to the purpose and nature of a specific mandala. The cardinal points, for instance, may be to represent a Kala Chakra mandala or a zodiac mandala, Rashi mandala with 12 squares, etc. A mandala could be designed very elaborately, creating an architectural replica of the Hindu-Buddhist universe with all its shades of colors and creatures, heavens and hells, letters and gestures, qualities and attributes, gods and goddesses. This is a 3-dimensional Sri Chakra Yantra, or a mandala, used by the followers of Sri Vidya school of Hinduism. It's called yantra in Hinduism and a mandala in Buddhism. Elaborate outer cleansing of the self to prepare for the ritual is a must. And the object of meditation is also thoroughly cleaned and washed and placed in a sacred space. After the installation and awakening the creative forces within the votary, the 4 upward pointing triangles represent the masculine principle of Shiva, while the 5 downward pointing triangles are the embodiment of the feminine energy, Shakti. The 4 gates here, can you see the 4 gates? These are known as the Bhupura Rekha, representing our own sense doors. This is used as a ritual symbol. It's used for meditation purposes. It is also used as an artistic symbol of Rangoli. Now, Sri Yantra is used by the Sri Vidya practitioners of Hinduism. These are the 4 gates, as I was referring to. These are known as the Bhupura Rekha. Now, we can look at it at different levels of symbolism. One is the actual gates. The other is our own sense doors. When we look at it as our sense doors, we need to close our sense doors once we enter the mandala. The entire space is sacred space, actually. So once we enter the gate, then we close all our sense doors of ears, eyes, mouth, and the touch. But nose keeps breathing, and to deep inward and outward breathing in and breathing out, we move towards the center. Now, these are the upward pointing triangles I was referring to. These are the Shiva, principles of Shiva, and the downward pointing triangles are the feminine energy of Shakti. Now, the two petal lotuses that are decorating the circle are many of our own aspirations, desires, negative energies, and so on. They all come there. And once we control our sense energies and desires, then we move. These are the inner lotus is for mind's movements, mental movements of thoughts, ideas, memories, past vasanas, and so on. So once we move towards the center, we realize that we are at the center. This is a meditative technique to bring our focus to the center point where Shiva and Shakti unite and our own creative energies are charged. As I told you, we have to fix the center. So we fix it, and the center becomes the sacred space. There are 3 or 4 important elements in a mandala. The circle representing time, the square representing space, the triangle could be waking, sleeping, and dream state. It could also be the triangle of the Devi. It could be the triangle of the past, present, and the future, depending on the function and the purpose for which a mandala is created. This is the Shri Yantra that I was talking to you about. It is depicted in different formats. This is a 3-dimensional Shri Yantra. As you can see, now it's a ritual object. It's no longer a diagram. This object is 3-dimensional, and it is placed at, instead of a vigraha or an icon, we place this, and the yantra acquires life. Now, you can create any mandala, as I said. In music, we have this raga mandala. Okay, at the center is the sa, shaj, as they call it, lower sa and the higher sa. Now, they interact, yin and yang, the concept of time and space. When they interact, all the other 6 swaras take birth as the 3 inverted triangles. And then through their movements, we create raga. If we look at it as raga and alongside tala is also involved, then the sama, the center space, becomes the sum, and around which you have the 8 beats of takka, dimi, takka, jono, blossoming like an open lotus. It could also be the 16 beats. Okay. Now, if you see the Bhupura Rekha again is to create the square within the mandala. This is the architectural mandala of Angkor Wat, the famous Angkor Wat. It takes a whole day to explain the symbolism of this architectural mandala because it works at different levels. One is, of course, the yuga. It is supposed to depict the 4 eons of Satya Yuga at the center, then the Treta Yuga, then the Dwapara Yuga, and finally the Kali Yuga. And each of these are measured in terms of 432,000 years. So as we move towards Kali Yuga, the time span comes in the ratio of 4:3:2:1. All these are measured in terms of hastas or hands. Now, the votary comes from this gate and moves into the center of the entrance and moves into Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, you move around the squares. You can see the Bhupara Rekha moving all over, and the corners are called the marmas, where the two joints come together. Now, if you move towards the Dwapara Yuga, you will see stories of Ramayana, Krishna, and so on. I'm sorry, in the Treta Yuga. Then, sorry, the Dwapara Yuga. And then you will have all the Indras, Indraloka created with Apsaras dancing. And at the center is Mahavishnu, the protector of the universe. Now, of course, it houses the Buddha, depending on the taste of the votaries of today. It was built by Suryavarman II in 12th century. If we want to see a typical architectural mandala, here is Borobudur, the Buddhist structure. I'm sure you might be wondering, what's this got to do with Japan? No, it is cultural flow. It's a continuum. A mandala is a concept that traverses the entire Asia. This is what I wanted to show. Here you see the squares, one square overlaid on the other, to suggest that the squares are themselves in motion. This movement of the squares is called Shishirita, which means shivers. The jagged edges of the squares are meant to show you that nothing is in stasis, nothing is absolutely in absolute position. They're all in motion. Architectural freeze, but movement for eternity. So as you move, these are the 5 different tiers to suggest the 5 elements at one level, to suggest the 5 senses at our human level. All the previous lives of the Buddhas are as Jataka tales depicted all over. And as you move towards the center, through the entrance of time, the Kala Mukha graces the entrance. You go through the time into the sacred space of the 3 circles at the top. These 3 circles represent Bhur, Bhuva, Suvaha. They've created this, and 432 Buddhas grace the circular tops, quite reminiscent of the yuga that we were talking of in terms of 432. Now, the journey that Sudhana makes, he is one of the kings who is believed to have gone in search of Sudhana, the real treasure. And as he moves towards the upper terraces, he sees bodhisattvas, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattvas, and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. And finally, when he comes to the top, he sees nothing but the open space, the emptiness, that which the Buddhists call shunyata. What is the purpose of this journey, one may wonder? The purpose is at the inward level, self level, it is inner purification, antakarana shuddhi. At the outer level, when we look at it, it is to encompass the entire Buddhist universe. Now let's see how the journey is made, the architectural journey. The person who makes the journey goes all the way from here and sees all the various dhatus, the Kama dhatu, the Rupa dhatu, and then finally the Arupa dhatu. Okay, the Shivas that I was talking to you are clearly depicted here. You can see how it looks as though the building, the structure itself is breathing. It's exhaling and inhaling. Now see this. This is the dance mandala, the semi-seated posture that Kathakali dancer takes is Mandala Sthanam, and the semi-seated posture that a Bharatanatyam dancer takes is the Ardha Mandala or the half Mandala. Once she takes that posture, she then, through movements in circles and squares and triangles, recreates and energizes her own inner centers, in Deha Mandala. All the 6 chakras are activated, and through stories and expressions and all the narration of the Puranas and mythic tales, she recreates the universe. And between movement and stillness, there is a time when everything stands still, like a stone sculpture. Really speaking, nothing stands still. If we see this mandala, it's a very popular sand mandala of Kala Chakra, and at the center is the Vajra, double Vajra. So here you find the 5 elements are given 5 different colors. The lotus petals protect the mandala, and of course the double Vajra, because it's part of the Vajrayana tradition, encircle the whole mandala. Now the gates become portals of heavenly abodes because bodhisattvas are believed to reside there. So they acquire all new dimension. Once we then go towards the inner circle, you will find the 8 different auspicious symbols of the Buddhists: the lotus, the double fish, the infinity knot, the kalasha, and so on. And at the center is the double Vajra. Double Vajra gives enormous power of the inner energies because you have focused your energies there. But of course, you can't stay there. So any mandala is created only for a temporary purpose. Once you have energized the self, once you have energized the mandala, the outer, then the powers have to go back to where they came from, and therefore the monk, with a stroke of a brush, dissolves it or destroys it, as it were. Here is a mandala created with bricks for a ritual. It's called the Homa. I'm sure everybody knows this. Now, this mandala, again, is 3-dimensional. And at the center, you have first, the preparatory steps have to be taken. That means you cleanse the place, you then imbue the bricks with life, and then you place them in a mandalaic pattern. Then there are the initial, invoking of the gods. All the gods are present in the Homa. And then with the fire invoked, the priest offers ghee, honey, and all the other unguents in order to energize the center, the Agni Mandala, with the powers of the sun, the energies of light, heat, and radiance. Once this ritual is over, again, the temporary powers invoked must go back to where they came from, the source. And therefore, a visarjana is done during Homa. This is the Japanese Goma in Kyoto. A monk is doing the same thing by invoking the fire and energizing its powers through mandala, mudra, and yantra. Now, since they are just symbols, even a letter is a symbol. As we know, Om is a symbol. Now, a symbol itself can become akshara. Akshara means the imperishable. The sound is imperishable after all. So all the mantras are placed in a mandalaic format, and then the bija or the seed akshara syllable is brought to life through mantras and prayers. Now, if we have it as a letter, then it decorates entrances of Japanese homes, Chinese homes, Even Om decorates our homes as a torana. But if we give life to them and create bodhisattvas out of them, then they become living bodhisattvas, the essence of bodhi, wisdom. Here, Om Mani Padme Hum, the famous Saddharma Pundarika mantra, is given life. Om has 3 heads, as you can see. Ma, Ni, Pe, Me, Hum. This 6 Shadakshari Bijakshara mantra is depicted as bodhisattvas seated on a lotus in a semi-lotus posture, listening to the woes of the people, the sufferings of the people, and alleviating their sufferings. So this mantra itself is protected by double vajra, the circular double vajra, and the 4 apsaras are lifting it high up on the wall, on the ceiling of Toji Nara. I have tried to recreate this Om Mani Padme Hum from the mandara that I saw in Japan. This is the Kongokai mandara. Here, Kongokai means the heavenly mandara. He is the Mahavairochana, the Bodhisattva of perfect wisdom. He's at the top. If you can see this, this is what I have created, but this one is the original. As you can see, he's seated at the right center top, and a 9 square mandala is created in order to celebrate, like the Navagraha, the heavenly mandala in the Kamakura period. It's a silk scroll, painted scroll that is decorating Kyoto Museum in Nara. Now this is the Taizokai mandara. The Taizokai means the womb, Garbha Dhatu mandala. The womb mandala means the earth mandala. The earth mandala springs forth like an 8-petaled lotus to suggest the 8-fold path of the Buddha. And at the center is again Dainichi Nyorai, or the Bodhisattva of compassion. Now, Dainichi Nyorai or Mahavairochana is none other than the Kongokai Mandara which we saw earlier in the Heaven Mandala. Now, why are they depicting in 2 different styles or the same Bodhisattvas, one may wonder? It is to suggest that what is on the earth is what is in the heaven. Famously recalling the Sanskrit adage, Yatha iha tatha amutra. What is here is what is there, and what is there is what is here. In other words, heaven and earth must be the reflection of each other. We are the reflection of the reflector. This Taizokai Mandara is part of the larger Mandara silk scroll of the Toji period. All the other bodhisattvas represent the 33,000 devatas that we talk of. Even in the Buddhist tradition, you have 33,000, sometimes 33 crores bodhisattvas. That means the limitless bodhisattvas. Each of them are but a representation of the potential in each individual. We are meant to evoke the bodhisattva in us through the meditation. Now, this is the Japanese Obon festival for the ancestors. They have created heaven, man, and earth. The heaven in between and the earth at 3 different levels of mandala, 3-dimensional mandala, because it is believed that once every year, the ancestors descend from the heaven to the earth to partake with the living. And that's the connection that is established. We call this Shraddha Fest. This is Horyoji Nara in Japan. If you can see how the structure has undergone some change, because it, by and large, is being influenced by the Nepalese wooden structures of pagoda. Pagoda is an interesting term. Etymologically, it is its origin is in Dagoba, which means Dhatu Garbha. Dhatu Garbha means Garbha is womb. Dhatu is the relic or the sacred symbol that energizes the temple at the center. So Dagoba became pagoda, and then it became pagoda. Here in that pagoda, you have the four entrances that I was talking to you. You have to go through the stairs and move towards the center. At the center, I'm not sure where I got this from, maybe Nara or maybe any other of the Japanese monasteries, but this is the Avalokiteshvara, 1,000 hands, 1,000 eyes, Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva. He is depicted himself as a mandala, for instance, all the 1,000 eyes stretching all over in a circle, and at the center of which is the heart. He's got the Namaskara Mudra, where he is an embodiment of compassion. This is a traditional kolam or rangoli, as you say. The fact that the lines that are drawn are interconnected is to suggest that everything has a cause and effect, the action and reaction, the chain that is endless in this universe. But in the endless universe, if we move towards the center, we can arrest the cyclical patterns, and they say you can break the karma cycle at the center, which means that you move towards the center where you have neither the action nor the reaction, you just are. Just as we saw the Raga Mandala, now we see Vairaga Mandala. Here we move to the metaphysical, where qualities and attributes take the form of a mandala. As we move into that Bhupura Rekha, the four doors, we close those doors and then move towards controlling all our five senses of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, mind, intellect, and ego, the eight-petaled lotus, and move towards the center. Now, before we come to the center are our six enemies. The enemies being Kama, lust, Krodha, anger, Mada, delusion, Moha, attachment, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Lobha. Lobha is greed. Matsarya is jealousy. Now, if we control all these six enemies through the process of Shama, Dhamma, you can see Shama and Dhamma here, which means inner and outer restraints. Uparama, that means being able to avoid the duality of Sukha and Dukkha, Raga and Dvesha, all the kinds of avarice and attachments. Titiksha, to be able to bear the extremes. Shraddha, absolute total faith in the Guru and the pursuit of one's object of one's pursuit. And Samadhana, which means equanimity. Then we move into the center space of Samadhi. In this center space, one attains a certain level of peace and harmony. And once we are able to go into that equanimity, it is called Vyashti. We are able to see the divine within ourselves through this meditative practice. But having seen the divine within us, that is not enough. because then you become a Pachanna Buddha, actually, Pacheka Buddha, which means you are individually quite highly refined, but you haven't taken the rest along. So we go back towards, move all the way like a open petal lotus. All our energies must then include all the things that are around us, the people and the things around us. In other words, we need to obliterate the difference between I and the other. When we extend our compassion and look at every self as our own self, then that becomes samashti. Samashti means integration. The person is completely integrated only when he moves outwards to encompass everything and everyone. And when he moves inwards, he moves into his own center space, which is the sacred space. The whole process of mandala is antakarana shuddhi, which is moving inwards to purify oneself, and loka sangraha, which means the well-being and goodness of all around us. I hope I was able to explain the different levels of mandala that we have. And I could go on because each mandala represents a particular form, function, and it's then dissolved, as I said. So we can create as many mandalas as we wish. I hope I've been able to explain to some extent. And any questions or anything else that one would like to add, either Sushila ji or Archana ji, I would be more than happy to listen and learn, because this has been a learning curve for me. Thank you.
Archana ji, please unmute yourself. Archana ji, please unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, this is, I'm sort of, thank you very, very much for the lucid and yet a very, very expansive kind of introduction to mandala in all its sensorial, spatial, and temporal kind of dimensions. The engagement with mandala in whatever form lies really at the threshold of being and becoming, form and formlessness, chaos and creation. And what fascinates me most is that how it has been adapted all across Asia. It has been localized, it has been kind of assimilated, and an entire vocabulary has emerged, and that itself talks about a kind of a cosmogrammar, which is being utilized or has been utilized to kind of layer it with so many kind of elements, like this whole thing of, the four quarters and the palaces. And there are a whole lot of Japanese kind of mandalas, which the entire palaces have been kind of built, just as you showed us with the Angkor Wat, And a lot of concepts have also become related, like the Trifum, the three worlds of the Buddhism, which you find in abundance in Cambodia. And also the forms, like in Cambodia, one was to see this offering of the stupas, sand stupas. And there would be sort of the center one and the four in the quarters, which were kind of offered ritualistically every before the Lent period. And so that is a very, very fascinating aspect of it. And you see it as an image, you see it as an icon, you see it as an object, you see it as, and how you negotiate that, with what kind of a ritual, with what kind of a performative gesture itself is very, very wide and astonishing. Like sort of for myself, because I'd been documenting some of the rituals there, found the whole concept of thread, the literal physical aspect of thread, which kind of links the initiate with the so-called mandala. Now, there are examples of it even in the Japanese, this thing, especially, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the death ceremony.
Yes.
So it kind of almost works almost as, I mean, yantra, tan, right? And I'm very fascinated about also the way you link it up with columns, because one of the studies which I had done with the column was also linked up with the ilkal sari. And the cloth also kind of manifests this. Like, for instance, in a sort of a Shraddh ceremony, the dhoti is tied at the navel, the center of your being. And the pleats are let down in the memory of the dead. So there is again a kind of continuous link from here and there.
That's why it's called sutra.
Sutra, yeah. And the ilkal sari itself, the way it is made, you see, it talks about the womb. The pleats are at the garbha, vadla it is called. And the periphery is again, so this whole thing of the center and the periphery that expands and is amazing. I mean, I don't know if there are more questions if someone would like to ask more questions. There are no questions as such. So, but that is another fascinating dimension. I would like, I mean, for myself, if, you could expand a little more on the sutra.
No, sutra is the link.
The
So,
link, yeah.
There is always the desire to link the living with the dead and vice versa.
Yeah.
And a link between the student and the teacher, the link between the past and the present. It's always a continuum. There's never a kind of a stasis, as you know, that there is no stasis. What we are actually doing is temporarily bringing a certain fixed position to center our own selves. It's a centering principle. But actually, everything is rotating, everything is interconnected. So the sutra is a way in which, I've seen sutra when you recite the mantras, for instance, at the sacred center space, while the rituals are going on, the Buddhist priest will take the sutra all the way to all the devotees who are outside the temple, several miles away from the temple. So the link, just like darbha means the grass, links us and with the outer world. The sutra links the sound also. The principle of sound travels backwards. It's like charged energies,
So that's what in Cambodia, for most of the ceremony, this link, of chanting through the thread and kind of transmitting it was very, very kind of explicit.
Yeah.
That was very, very fascinating. And also, I'm just curious. Again, no one is asking questions.
I asked already.
You, Padmini.
Yeah. I wrote also. Can you please say more about differences of mandala seen in India and Japan?
See, every mandala is different even within India. There are no two mandalas of the same kind. You will see no two temples are of the same type. No two the columns are of the same kind. You see, because it all depends on what are your coordinates. Depending on your coordinates, your quarters, it could be 4 quarters to say 4 directions, could be 8 to suggest 8 directions, or Ashtadala Lakshmi, the 8 different forms of Lakshmi. It could be 6 to say Shatkona Yantra to depict the sun. So no two mandalas are ever the same. So each person who is creating the mandala must know what are his purposes of creating this mandala and where he wishes to take various concepts and how he wishes to move towards the center. And that is in itself a process. The process is more important than the product. In fact, verily, the product is shunya in the Buddhist tradition, because we believe when we move outwards, it's purna in the Hindu tradition. So it's effectively zero, but potentially full. So the emptiness and the fullness are interacting between breathing in and breathing out, between the coordinates of past and present. If you consider the three triangles, past, present, future, if you are thinking in terms of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, then you'll have 4 coordinates. If you have the 5 elements or 5 senses, you will create 5 and place the space at the center. Depending on the individual's needs, you create mandalas. So in Japan, during those 200-300 years, they were powerfully influenced by the Shingon sect. The Shingon sect again influenced the Tendai school subsequently, and Shinto Buddhism. So now they created mandalas in the best way they knew. Very often, these are esoteric practices, not exposed to the common man, because there is a mystery involved in this. So they like to keep it guhya or rahasya, or the secret. So all you see is the outer, and are completely, with faith in the bodhisattvas that are being created, you get engrossed in it, you get immersed in it. But the priest seldom explains all these things in Japan. It is meant for esoteric practices, tantric practices, as they say.
Yeah, Shobji. Padmini, you have more to ask?
Yes.
I have one more question later.
Acha.
Let Ashokji ask her.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just wondering whether this mandala kind of approach was extended to planning of cities.
Yes, yes, very much. In fact, they had, the Nagara Mandala, where the center would be the Raj Mandala, where the king would sit, and around the 4 corners, they will create temples for people to visit. Then the outer 4 quadrangles will be for the priests, and then the outer for the people who follow the belief systems. And so they created mandalas in so many different ways. It's called the Nagara Mandala.
And any example?
I could suggest in Indonesia there was. I have read about the mandalas in Indonesia. In fact, he was known as some Mandala Putra. One of the kings was known as Mandala Putra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, Chidambaram is also based on that. You have
Yes,
the temple that is
Chidambaram.
mentioned and you have the prakaras all around.
That's right. Tiruvannamalai. All of them are mandalas.
Great. Yes.
27 stars plus 1 at the center, 28 mandalas are created. And all these entrances are decorated with gopuras.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Padmini?
Yeah, I wanted to check, like you have mandalas in Buddhism. We have mandalas in Buddhism. We have mandalas also in Jainism. Now, and sometimes you see it also in Hinduism. Now, what are the differences between these? Can you tell something about that?
And may I
As
say
a
something?
concept, sorry?
May I say something?
Yes.
In the Rig Veda also there are mandalas, 10 mandalas.
Yes. That's right. A mandala simply means universe. Okay. So you can create any universe you would like to create. See, Navagraha Mandala could also be Navarasa Mandala. 9 different planets can now become Navarasas, which means all the emotions that you have, you create, and at the center you place Shanta. That means total peace and tranquility. So any number of mandalas, whether it's Jaina or Buddhist or Hindu, mandalas are common to all 3 traditions. Only their representations, their depictions may vary. according to the region and the place. But its objective was the same, the centering principle.
Okay, thank you. That was
Welcome.
Sushila ji? Professor Narasimhan?
She has to
You have to unmute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting talk, Radhika. In slide 13, you showed that the Buddhist monks, they were destroying the mandala prepared by them. Why do they destroy? Once they have made it, put in so much effort, and then they destroy.
Yes, this is not really destruction. This is dissolution, visarjana. We call it dissolution because what you create is for a temporary reason, for a temporary purpose, for a temporary ritual, program, whatever. But having completed it, it could be for 10 days, it could be for 3 days. Having completed it, we need to start afresh. We cannot hang on to it. That is attachment. So, in order to create and then preserve all the energies there, and then finally at the end of it, we need to detach ourselves from the created object. They do the visarjana or the dissolution, as it were. So, fresh mandalas are created.
So does it also signify impermanence of?
Absolutely, that is the basis of mandalas, the transience of the objective world, and yet we are trying to seek permanence in the transient world. So this so-called permanence is at the center. Why I call so-called permanence is because everything that we create is only for that particular purpose. And then at the end of it, even that gets dissolved. Like you have Mahapralaya. After the 4 Srishti Sthiti, you have Laya, right? So you create Srishti, Sthiti, you preserve and you offer prayers, you do the centering, you work at it for several days, sometimes months. And then Laya. Laya is sending it back to the energies and sources from where it came, and then creating afresh, like life itself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Any more questions? Or, I want to ask one more question.
Sure.
One is in terms of you see, the Vastu Shastri, So that becomes the basis for the later Hindu temples. Of course, the arrangement of all the sculptures and everything, from the Garbhagriha to the outer kind of periphery and stages with which they kind of show is very much based on the mandala principle, the inner and the outer.
That's
But
right.
the Vastu, from the Adi Purusha, how do you see it in contrast?
See, Vastu becomes Vastu. Okay? Vastu is anything. Okay? Something. We don't know what thing it is. From the Vastu, you create the Vastu. Vastu Purusha, which means you are now giving it life. Time and space collapse. Nothing exists at the time when it is collapsed. At the point at which you have the center, time and space have collapsed. Okay? So that is the here and now. And here, before I say here and now, the now is already gone. So here and now is the point, the center point. But once you lift time and space and create the space between the two, then you can create a 3-dimensional mandala, Vastu Purusha Mandala. And once you have created that space, you put the Dhwaja Stambha, as they call it, the flagpole. This is called the cosmic pillar of the universe. The cosmic pillar of the universe is stationed in the ground, earth, the space, it covers the space, and then goes towards the heavenly abodes. Okay, so that is the cosmic axial pole which brings order in the universe of chaos.
What is the difference between the Maru's thumb or Meru's thumb
Meru
and
Stambha.
this sort of thumb in front of the temple?
Oh, in front of the temple is called Dhwajastambha.
Rajasthan.
Sometimes it's called Vijayastambha. If the king has had a victory over some place and then wants to establish his victory, then he'll have Vijayastambha, Jayastambha, or Dhwajastambha. Now, having created that Dhwajastambha, this is a replica of the sacred Lord within the temple. So people normally pray to this first as they enter. This is the center, cosmic center. Then as they move towards their own center, it's like a reclining God and a vertical and a horizontal God. Okay.
Yeah.
So both have to merge at the center. Now, when you go to the center, you will have all your own parts of the body. In the image of man is the temple. So your own parts of the body, the nabhi, the hridaya, the griva, the shoulders, they're all there in the structure. Then when you go to the center of the sacred space, the whole place coheres all the three energies of, it's called Garbha Griha. That means the womb space. But actually, it's not just Garbha Griha, it's also the Hridaya Griha, Guhakasha, and the Chitta, mind space. All three cohere because they're all energy centers.
Yeah.
So the womb space, the heart space. So Bhutakasha, Chitta Akasha, and Chidakasha. All three merge on the icon at the center.
Yeah.
Now, when you go around doing the pradakshina, you are the movement. You go around and then arrive at the center when your thoughts and your emotions have all come together to a position of equanimity, and you surrender at the feet of the Lord. Surrendering principle is very important because they say in surrender is freedom. There is nothing that is really yours or you. So when you surrender, there is freedom. That is moksha. So that is the whole aim of a temple and a visit to the temple. You don't do it quickly and then mechanically and go there and wish for something and then become an artharthi and come back. But you actually experience this selflessness and then moving outwards to encompass everybody in the universe. Only then it becomes a bodhisattva of compassion. In other words, they say, if you remain just seeking your own antakarana shuddhi, then you become almost selfish because you're only looking at your own self. But you can be totally selfless only when you encompass the rest. So you have to move outwards and do loka sangraha, which means doing good to the world, as if they are you.
Sushila ji, I think Professor George had a question.
Archana ji, George, I think he wants to ask.
Yes. Please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Radhika for a wonderful presentation. It is a wonderful presentation, and the first time I think we could listen to such a wonderful presentation on mandalas. And especially I'm interested in mandalas in Japan. Of course, you have very elaborately explained about Shinkon, that Vajrayana Buddhism mandalas, and then of course Indian mandalas. However, I would like to, this is only not question, a suggestion or a comment that in Japan, I think there are various other Buddhist sects like Nichiren sect or Jodo Shinshu, the new Pure Land Buddhism. They all have their own different types of mandalas.
Yes.
For example, Nichiren sect, why I'm interested because I am working on Shimazaki Miyazawa Kenji, and he is actually very, what is a strong believer of Nichiren sect Buddhism.
Okay.
And he himself has made mandala when he's a writer also. So he made the mandala. In Nichiren sect, they have a particular type of mandala called Moji mandala. Moji means letters,
Yes.
Chinese characters and
Yes.
Sanskrit letters, alphabets are used for making the mandala.
Yes.
Now, my question is, you said that the basic structure of mandala, everywhere it is same. The concept, same it seems. But in Moji, I don't know whether you have gone into detail about this alphabet mandala, Moji mandala, whether they also follow all the principles of normal mandalas which we make in India or in Tibet, the Shingon mandala, the Tantric mandalas, whether this Nichiren mandalas also follow the same principles or not. Do you have any idea? Have you gone through that?
Thank you. Nichiren is, if I'm not mistaken, a very recent school
Yeah,
of
almost
Buddhism.
700 years old.
Okay, so I'm afraid I haven't actually explored Nichiren Buddhism, but akshara, bija akshara, that means the seed syllable, is something that we have also got. The 54 seed syllables of mandala are created, and then each akshara is given a certain form, feminine form, and then you have all the 6 Deha Mandala chakras are given a certain sound value. So, after all, Akshara is also a symbol, a sound symbol, whether it's a visual symbol or a sound symbol or an architectural symbol. A symbol is merely something that represents something else, deeper. So, you can create as many mandalas as you want. You can create a mandala out of Om, Akara, Ukara, Makara. So there are 3 elements of A, U and M. 3 is a triangle. And so it's also Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. And at the center, and the waking, dreaming and sleep state. And beyond all that is the Turiya at the center. So you can create as many mandalas as you want for your own individual needs.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank you.
think maybe you can, if you have time, you can explore this Nichiren mandalas and also Pure Land mandalas,
Pure
They're
Land is
different from.
Yeah, Pure Land is very similar to the Amitabha, sect.
Yeah, Amitabha,
So they also have Omitofo in China, where they bring in all the syllables and create mandalas. So it's very
and
similar to that.
Then New Pure Land also, they have that Nembutsu mandala. Nembutsu is in Amida Butsu, the
Right.
prayer in Buddhism.
Yes.
That Nembutsu mandala is there. So this Miyazawa Kenji, actually originally he was from Yodo Shinshu, New Pure Land. After that he converted into Nichiren sect.
Nichiren.
So
Okay.
Lotus Sutra, no? So
Yeah, because it depends on the focus you have. If you are focused on mantra, then you will have Pure Land. If you have a focus on the silence and going inwards, you will have something else. So depending on your focus, are you focusing on silence and controlling of your senses, or are you focusing on one mantra? Depends on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have exceeded the time. Any more questions? Archana ji, can I wrap up with your permission?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Radhika, for a very fascinating presentation and unraveling the mysticism of mandala. In fact, in recent years, mandalas have become increasingly popular, not only because of their aesthetic appeal, art and spirituality, but also because of their therapeutic benefits.
Yeah.
And recently I visited a wellness center where I saw patients engaged in mandala drawing or coloring
Yes.
a given mandala pattern.
Yes.
And it was really wonderful having Archana ji as the chair and listening to your insightful comments. Last year in August, we had the privilege to listen to your lecture in which you had talked about Indian and Japanese traditional textile practices. So, and all these lectures, for your information, are available on YouTube and also the MOSAI website. Thank you very much, Archana ji, for your continued interest in Kizuna activities. And I hope to see both Radhika and Archana ji again on Kizuna platform.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Kizuna India-Japan Study Forum, I thank all other participants from various parts of the world who were able to join us via Zoom. Thank you so much. Thank